So, it's been a minute. I'd like to say I was working on some secret massive project while I was gone, but honestly, I was taking a break from Destiny because the day one raid kind of destroyed me mentally. Then, when I was ready to come back in any kind of significant way, the layoffs, bad news, and shitty balancing decisions kept piling and piling, until even playing the game felt like some kind of insurmountable pointless chore. I made my video about why 111 was a horrible decision in hopes that Bungie would come to understand why it would hurt the game, so that even if I wasn't playing, at least the people who were would have a better experience. What happened instead was the development of one of the worst metas I've ever seen. One-shot wombos from every class were discovered, clones, smokes, and swarms locked off entire sectors of the map for minutes at a time, which brought about an incredibly stagnant movement meta. Then, partially due to this stagnant meta, the overbearing prevalence of boring weapons like 340 pulses, 120s, and box-breathing scouts all made the game extremely frustrating to play. All of that sucked, of course, but the real death blow that killed my interest during Echoes, for me, was, as usual, a lack of interesting PvP loot. Not bad, mind you, just uninteresting. Shiura's was without a doubt the best it's ever been. Better Devils had cool strand synergy, and both Someday and Compass Rose took turns innovating shotguns as a whole. To be brutally honest though, I could not bring myself to give half of a fuck about weapons I've already played with before. Sure, I grinded good rolls of Compass Rose and something new, but that was more out of FOMO because I knew I'd have to wait an entire year before they came back, than actually being interested in the game. The truth is that shotguns have never gotten more nuanced than range plus handling equals good, and SMGs in their current format are so fucking boring, I'd rather go back to Destiny 1 and use Badger CCL on First Light. Better Devils made me mad an entirely different way, as its crazy perk pool would have been enough to be the entire reason I even played PvP if Bungie hadn't given it the most cucked stat package I've ever seen in my life. These recent buffs give it no quarter. It has no range, no lightweight, no handling, no stability, no bitches, no dick, no balls. It's just horrible. And that makes using it in low population SPMM lobbies a Herculean task that I don't care to undertake. We did get quite a few cool sniper rifles, but I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Snipers are fucking ass, all caps italicized right now, man. Aggressives can't one-shot Song of Flame without a damage perk. The old snapshot and zoom nerfs made it so the only snipers that are somewhat usable require max handling, perfect perks, and tons of aim assist, and that's not to even mention how egregious flinch is right now. As for specific loot, Eye of Soul wasn't any cooler than 2 seasons ago, and Critical Anomaly, the Domino, and Embraced Identity all got cucked out of Snapshot or crucial damage or handling perks that would make them decent competition for any prevalent snipers available right now. All of this is to say, Destiny was doing its best to make me stop playing, but as is customary, and as I've done for the last 10 years, I braced myself even harder in an attempt to weather the storm. In order to do this, I've come up with 7 rules that have allowed me to somewhat enjoy the garbage that the only viable FPS arena shooter on the market has to offer. Rule number 1, no matter what happens, you will die, and it's frequently not preventable. What I mean by this is that no matter how cautious you play, something will always kill you. Anytime you get annoyed at this, it gets under your skin and you play a little worse. This eventually translates into full tilt inting, leading to worse play, and it spirals from there, which means emotional attachment to your KD, stats, or whatever will always result in disappointment. Being happy about a good KD is fine, being disappointed by a bad KD is also fine, but the important takeaway is to analyze why you feel that way. Frequently, at least for me, when I break my annoyance down to the root cause, I find that I'm not mad about anything except my own inability to be perfect, and Destiny 2 just isn't a predictable enough game for perfection to be the goal. Therefore, you must let go, my friend, and only then can you enjoy the game. Basically, to play D2, you've got to be so emotionally enlightened that the Buddha gets jealous. Rule number 2, you cannot care about winning or losing, because there are too many external factors out of your control. Skill-based matchmaking, lobby balancing, cheaters, shitty networking, blah blah blah, will take turns screwing you in every conceivable way. If your emotional validation can be affected by any of these things, you're setting yourself up to fail. Have confidence in your ability, and when the game screws you, accept it and move on. Even if you lost your Flawless, like I did the other day, smile. Even if you lost 300 comp rank, even if you lost way more elo than you should have, it doesn't matter, because there's a good 40% of Destiny that is simply out of your control. If you let go of that attachment, your ability to fuck around and have fun in the goofy silly baby game will allow you to turn the most frustrating match into something fun or at least mildly entertaining. Rule number 3, somebody is always better than you at something in every lobby. This usually isn't even attached to skill, and instead just means that somebody has a counter to some specific part of your playstyle. Maybe that's some freak with a bow that makes using a hand cannon impossible. Maybe it's some idiot with a fusion that makes CQC incredibly unfun. Maybe it's me with my stupid throwing knives running it down mid and destroying your ability to have fun with your sidearm and then bagging you about it. Just know that Destiny's sandbox is big, broken, and impossible to read at a glance. Someone will always be there to fuck with your flow, and the faster you accept that, the faster you can get over yourself when some 0.3 bot-walking shitfuck fusions you from 8 miles away and shuts down your 7th column. Yes, this has happened to me. As you get better at the game, your own ability to judge what fights you can and cannot win will improve, but no matter how good you are, some goofball will still be there to mess with you. Accept it and move past it. Rule number 4. The meta will always be shit, and cheese will ferment for eternity. Let's just be insanely real for a second. Bungie is mostly fucking clueless. I don't mean this to be mean or targeted, because I know there are many good people working on the Crucible sandbox all the time. But as you look at and live through balance patches, you slowly develop this sense that Bungie lacks even a minute fraction of a clue what they're doing when it comes to PvP. For an example of this, we can just look at fusion rifles. They've been unironically broken ever since D2's beta, and they've stayed that way through every nerf or rework, and have frequently even received unwarranted buffs. See Telesto. There's a near infinite number of things that aren't technically broken, but are insanely annoying or predictable as well. While this is incredibly frustrating, we as players can only get mad at brain-dead changes or lack thereof so many times before it becomes pure idiocy to attach any emotional weight to the state of the meta. If you don't like the meta, then either get over yourself and use it, attempt to counter it, or ignore it entirely, and whenever you die to some retarded combination of bullshit, just roll your eyes a little and get back in the fight. This is an extremely hard lesson to learn, so a starter tip is that whenever some idiotic unplayable trash messes with you, just remember that you are in fact playing a game. If it isn't fun, turn it off. It's that simple. Eventually, that feeling of control over Destiny's ability to affect you will allow you to play for longer sessions without feeling beaten up emotionally, and you'll reach a point where no matter what happens, you'll still be somewhat chill about it. Rule number 5. Destiny 2 is inherently a bad game with bad balancing choices that contains good mechanics. The longer you play D2, the more you'll start to see the cracks in its poor foundation. Melee whiffs, shoddy hit reg, damage glitches caused by server desync will stick out more and more, horrible balance patches that make no sense like Bungie's seeming inability to nerf Strand correctly without destroying the skill gap, AE taking forever to actually be a usable system, or stasis literally existing will start to degrade your perception of the game. The lesson to learn here from me was that the game sucks, but the good in it is enough to still have fun if you can successfully move past the flaws. I love Warlock skating with Burst Glide. Icarus-Tech has given me at least 500 hours of entertainment on its own, and learning how to properly space your slides and move efficiently is incredibly satisfying. However, D2 sucks. You need to remember and acknowledge that in order to avoid being caught off guard when something stupid happens. If you do this successfully, instead of that melee whiff which lost you your flawless being a dick punch that leaves you laying on the ground in pain, it's more like a light nut tap from the bro. Sure, you're gonna hop around yelling about it for a bit, but it's expected, even funny, once it happens enough times. Basically, the game sucks, but you can still enjoy the good parts of it, despite the glaringly obvious issues that Bungie refuses to or is incapable of fixing. Rule number 6. The game is not consistent enough to care about your end-of-match performance. This is really just a continuation from rules 1 and 2, but this covers game-by-game performance. One game you'll be 3 kills off a 50 streak, and the next you'll be lucky to land 3 headshots in a row. For me personally, there was a time when KD became such a focus after every game that it ruined my expectation for what my average game should look like. I would get a 3.0 and immediately think, damn, I should have played that better, and it destroyed my enjoyment of the game because I was thinking about all the catching up I'd have to do to actually achieve the performance I wanted. The game is inconsistent, and the players more so. The moment you lose track of this and start getting frustrated when you aren't landing 40 kills every match is the same moment playing the game becomes mental torture instead of something you do for fun. Look at the leaderboard, say, huh, that's kinda cool, or damn, I fucking suck, and move on. The less performance matters to you and the less impact it has on your emotional state, the better. That isn't to say that taking the game seriously is wrong. Sometimes you gotta lock in and give it everything you've got and more because of X or Y reason that losing a particular match is bad. What I mean to say is that D2 is inherently inconsistent, broken, buggy, and any other adjective you can think of to describe this mess of a game we play. So, seeking emotional validation from an outcome that will be skewed by these systems, rather than your own input which you can control and improve, is almost always a disaster. Rule number 7. Always be satisfied with what you already have. This is about Destiny 2's gacha game-esque loot system. First, let's just be clear. An average 5 out of 5 pull has about a 1 in 3,000 chance of happening. Don't get attached to a piece of loot, because the disappointment of not getting it can literally ruin the entire game for you. For no specific reason at all, Rose seems to be coming to mind here. I wonder why. Yes, better loot will give you an advantage in PvP, but I've lost way more games to dudes using actual trash off the floor than dudes with 6 out of 6 roses and 5 out of 5 matadors. Grinding for something isn't some kind of massive flaw. But if you're already satisfied by what you have, you can spend your time actually playing the parts of the game you like, instead of doing the same monotonous activity that you hate in order to get something slightly better than what you've got. If you enjoy grinding Frisia for Matador or Garden Second for Prophet of Doom, that's great, but if you don't, pull your Thorn and Fellwinter from collections, put it on your Ophidians, and spec 100 recovery while dumping everything else. I promise you won't be nearly as disadvantaged as everyone makes you out to be. Basically, it's a looter shooter, but remember to do the amount of shooting that makes the game fun, and don't lose yourself in the greed of grinding better loot. That goes for in-game performance too. Don't be so focused on chasing a better KD or contest clear that you lose sight of the fact that the reason you're on the game in the first place is because you want to be. Pushing yourself is okay. Hell, I was in contest mode Vespers for like 20 hours before I got my clear. But the reason you're pushing yourself that hard matters just as much as the actual achievement. Shitty game mechanics, token systems, or bugs that come out and make clearing the dungeon way easier than it should have been can't take that away from you. When you play the game because you want to, you play it. Don't let the reverse happen. That's it for the rules, but it isn't quite the end of the video because I wrote these like a month ago. After thoroughly enjoying Revenant's launch and then chilling out until new content drops, I can say without a doubt that this new approach to Destiny 2 has significantly increased my ability to play the game without hating every single line of code that makes it up. I'm disappointed that Icebreaker isn't as cool as I thought it would be because I don't think its damage profile justifies its abysmal performance otherwise, but that's honestly about it. It's not like I'm some jaded, hope is the mind killer absolutist, but I'm not constantly disappointed either. I guess they call this stage acceptance, but to me it feels more like acknowledgement. I know how the game is, has been, and is probably going to be, and I'm working to exist alongside that conclusion. Fuck fusions, praise God, subscribe. I'm out.